Right, so let's start with one you've probably seen before.
Well, hang on. Look, pause
No,
it.
you're
Pause
not
it.
ready.
Hang on. We need to
No,
do
he's
the
not
introduction.
ready. Oh,
Come on, got to
okay,
do the
all
introduction.
right.
It's Mr. Tim Searle, whose work I have been aware of since 1990, when I saw nearly the first episode of Have I Got News for You, and I've seen this incredible title sequence evolve over the following 30 years, and then it got ruined when the new people took it over.
Yes.
Tim is one of the defining figures in British animation, and I don't know what else to say. Apart from, can we have a big round of applause for Mr. Tim Searle?
Thanks so much for coming out on a wet and cold Monday night, but and bearing with us while we got the bleeding technical sorted out. But hello. Now, I'm going to start with one you've seen, as Martin suggested. So, I don't do that anymore, sore point. Let's talk about it later. I've got about 40 minutes worth of slideshow to rattle through, and then we can have questions and stuff then, perhaps, I thought. And then I've got like a selection of films, but I thought we'd turn the sound down, just chuck them up and then we can just chat. So, that's the format. Sounds pretty professional, don't it? So, let's get on with it. So, I've got one of those faces. So, I'm not in. I'm certainly not in. I'm not in, although I have been accused directly of being him. But I'm not in. I'm just Tim. Your avuncular Tim, who's here to talk to you about my time in animation. And as you can see, that's probably around the time I started. There's what 30 odd years of animation does to a place. I'm not a filmmaker like many of you. I'm sorry to say I've never made an independent short yet. But that's because I think the way I've seen it so far is that the funding issues in this country just prevent it. So I've just not been able to do it so yet. Much as I really admire everyone who makes short films, and I love going to festivals and watching them, but not yet, for whatever reason, done one myself. So I've been in making animation all my adult life and being the arty one at school. You know, I was one of those. You know, so it was. It's been my definition of my life. You know, of me. You know, as my thing, myself, to be that. So what is it I actually do? So my 34 years, I've ducked and dived and kept myself in gainful employment for most of that time, but I don't think I'm on my own by saying that it's a really weird time now, and I'm facing the longest period of unemployment I've ever had. And maybe it's just me.
It isn't.
So the longest period of uncertainty, that's for sure. And doing this, pulling this together, has been like cathartic. It's sort of, you know, reminded me I've actually done some stuff, and I've still got stuff to say. So thanks, Martin, for asking me to do it. So I thought what would be a good way to start is talk about being in comedy. You need a point of view and you need a perspective. So we all need that, and I thought I'd start off by giving you a quick canter through my background, and then hopefully it'll give you a picture of where I come from. So, love this as a kid, love that as a kid. Sitcoms for kids, that's what they were, weren't they? Let's face it, and they didn't talk down to us. Rhubarb, I loved the Bonkers Fun, the Bob Godfrey, and you could just feel the love that was made with, couldn't you, even when you were kids watching it. And many years later I was absolutely knocked out when Bob Godfrey got on the train and came to see what we were doing at Traffic, and took him for a pie and mash in the in the local pub, and he said, "You get it, Tim." And I thought, "Oh, I'll take that." So, Mr. Ben, this was mad, wasn't it? The banana splits, it was just so otherworldly, and there was that, Jungo Danger Island, it was like a sketch show, wasn't it, within it, so, and it was just felt just otherworldly and cool, so cool. 70s show, you're in for a treat, looking that one up. Tom and Jerry, but they've got to be the proper ones.
Yeah.
His name didn't come up at the end of the titles. I went out and played, and so did all my friends, because we could sniff the difference between the good ones and the later ones, and I was always wondered what this bloke did, Fred Pearley, and I'm still fascinated by him because I understand he was a bit of a drinker, and he didn't really do much, but he clearly was the glue, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So, Ivor the engine, again, you could just feel the love that was made with, absolutely love that, and Noggin the Nog, I remember that being such a great book, and getting that from the mobile library. The Muppet Show, I mean, again, it's a sitcom, isn't it? It's a sitcom, and for kids, and with great characters, and in the Tex Avery cartoons were still on the telly then, and so this is a still from Dumb-Handed. It's one of my favourites. You moved, didn't you? And then Michael Benteen's Potty Time. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
They do the feet. I still don't get that, but Benteen was a goon in his early years, and he was a fascinating bloke. I must have been only about 5 or 6, but I remember with real fondness of you could sniff his integrity. It was a real bloke. And I've since learnt his dad was a Peruvian aeronautic engineer. He was well educated and had to overcome his stammer, and subsequently developed an interest in amateur dramatics. And in the Second World War, he volunteered, but was initially turned away because of his dad's nationality. But he was doing a performance on stage, and he got frog marched off by and accused of desertion, and just incredible story. That he's just such a bloke in terms of his what he did, and you could. Even as a kid, you thought this bloke with a weird blazer, with a jack thing on. You could tell he was for real, and but loved him, So, and like I say, he was a goon, and my dad had all the records, and the goons were a bygone thing then, even. But that was just like brilliant. Flights of Fancy. Silence, and you filled the pictures in for yourself, didn't you? And it was just brilliant, sort of gag writing and comedy. And the goons were, they were the Mighty Boosh of their time. I like I say, they were well past their, they'd finished doing their thing. But my dad was fascinated with them, and so he sort of introduced me to them. And there was Max Boyce even, Max Miller. The cheeky chappie, and his records, and this was old stuff written from your dad. But then there was things like Steptoe & Son, and I absolutely loved this. And I remember there was the movie one where the old boy is getting a bath in the sink, and just the brilliant well-timed bit of being spotted by the neighbour across the way, and he picks up a box of Flash and puts it in front of his bit, and I remember just howling at it, and so did everyone else in the room, and it was just I just quickly sussed as a 5 or 6 year old the value of comedy, so things like it was very broad, but it was omnipresent, and Morecambe and Wise and Des O'Connor and Pat the People, Citizen Smith, and then of course there was the comic strip. Monty Python, loved the way that obviously the Terry Gilliam stuff worked. And I'm just sussing out that the power of comedy was the power to bring people together. and these were on the telly all the time, and you just hear the music, and you race to watch what was on, and it was just, obviously ancient then 30s stuff, but it's just. I mean, I watched some of these. Like, I had to do a presentation to a local school, and I played them one, and it was fascinating watching because it's like really they don't watch stuff like that, and they're quite violent, aren't they? So, and so it's not really shown to little kids, but more to pity because the timing and the humanity in that, you just absolutely get every beat. And the power of comedy was something I worked out in terms of its ability to puncture pomposity. So grew up in East London. My dad worked as a lighterman on the River Thames when boats were kind of rather than coming in on containers, the stuff used to come on loose in the boats, and then they'd put them off into the barges, and he was the man responsible for making sure those barges got to where they got, all the way up to Teddington and River Lee and all that. So and he was reliant on the tides, and it was a proper, really responsible job. He rowed for the PLA, and he had massive arms. And then it all stopped when containerisation came along and strikes and that, and massive industrial unrest, and basically it all changed in the early 70s. We moved to Milton Keynes. And I remember going to an exhibition in Piccadilly, and there were all these brilliant models, how fantastic it was going to look and all that. And this bloke gave me that poster, and that went on my bedroom wall on his hand. And then everything started going in boxes, and then we moved. And then we moved to this place, and it didn't look like that. It was just mud everywhere, so, but it was an exciting place to grow up. There was people like Liz Lay, who was an artist in residence. She's the woman who left the city with the concrete cows when she went back to Canada. And I remember going to art workshops and things with like community workshops with her and others. And then I because I kind of I found out that art was my thing, because I was crap at football. You kind of have to be good at something, and you certainly at the schools I went to. So I kind of remember really getting stuck into a picture of a koala with the baby koala on the back, and I must have only been quite young, but I remember that was the one where they were all going, "Wow, this is something," and I thought, "Oh, this is nice. People like this." So I thought, right, I'll do that then. And then they had all these underpasses to decorate, and I remember being the kid who did the design, and then the group projects, and we'd all delegate and kind of get the thing going. I was the glue. And there's shows like Porridge then, isn't there? And It Ain't Half Hot Mum, and that's never been repeated in later years. More's the pity. I thought it because it was a historic thing then. It was a sitcom about the 40s in the war, obviously, and the attitudes of them there in India. And I always thought that the Indian characters were the winners and the officers were the dicks. And I think it's a shame that we can't look back through the prism of history, that everything has to be so right now. And I don't think it helps anyone understand things in terms of kids, certainly. They only get one dimensional view of life. I don't think it equips them. So I think it's best to understand where things come from, at least. So I used to love this, and my dad used to howl at it. And then the guy, the punk waller at the end, he was like the cat in Hong Kong Phooey, wasn't he? He was the wise one. He was summed up with subtitles what you just see, And I thought, well, they're giving the power to these guys anyway. So generation game. So there's Anthea Redfern, give us a twirl. And at this point, my mum was doing her Open University degree, and she was it was literally like educating Rita, and she was sort of having her eyes open to modern attitude. and we had some interesting chats. I remember those, you know, and because even as a kid, you could see what an arse he was, a real bully to her, and she seemed again to be the one who knew what was going on and had the little smart kind of looks to camera and stuff. And I always thought that he made a prat of himself quite often, not unwittingly. Anyway, I thought, Mum, I've done that, talked about that. Mike Yarwood, I mean, this was pretty lame stuff, but it was omnipresent, and it used to in 1977, it got 26 million views, more than Morecambe and Wise. And with this stuff, the whole family watched and laughed, and then in the week, you'd all be trying to do his impressions of what he'd been doing. It was weird, but it was just flipping so powerful, but yeah, pretty thin. But then, of course, this came along and blew everything out the water, and it was our thing as well. It was just like this was again sitcom. We watch it now, great characters, drawn very well, and. But then they chuck in, you know, the odd band, and now we've got 900, you know, just like, where did that come from? And the puppets and stuff like that. I used to love that show. You know, it did feel like it was for us, you know. So, and Adrian Edmondson, comedy hero. We'll talk about him in a bit.
The young ones.
Yeah. And then Derek and Clive, remember that? That was like forbidden fruit. You get a dodgy cassette of it off your mate. And again, so rude, but so brilliant. So it's Peter Cook does it all. And yes, very. This is when you sort of, you know, comedy is something to pass around. It's not like a mucky magazine. It was mucky comedy, you know. But it was just, again, flipping powerful stuff. It was like, if you heard that, Derek and Clive, it's like you needed to hear it. So and then, like I say, I grew up in Milton Keynes, and just up the road there was Coventry, and they had the two-tone thing going on, and it was just such an exciting time. Post-punk and much more musical, you could dance to it, and it was in our school, 2,000 kids in our school, and there were all sorts. You know, you went to your tutor group. Oh, by the way, we called our teachers by their Christian names, and we had shared time and all that. It was one of those, you know, progressive schools, and the art department was flipping brilliant. But we had to rub along with all sorts. You know, you went to your tutor group, and there were all the kids who would go special needs, proper hard nuts, and they mixed with us lot for some time, and then went off to their own groups for their special needs classes. But it didn't feel like they were kind of different. It just felt like we were all getting on with it because we hung together so much. But yeah, music was powerful and really, really important and political, wasn't it? So the Beat, Hunt Emerson did their design stuff, and he did a brilliant, cool design of a girl dancing. Do you remember that? And apparently, up until then, all the skinheads used to come and have massive fights at their gigs, and then they did that cool logo with the girl from dancing, Hunt Emerson. And after that, more girls turned up, and they were sort of like a civilising effect on the room, and the fight stopped, and because all the boys wanted to show off to the girls, and it was a great time of kind of music and art and everything combining. So there was the Blockheads, and then you thought that there was that horrible cow who said that there's no such thing as society, and we were all like, well, of course there's such a thing as society, and I still hold that very dear.
What's this?
What's that? That's spitting image. So we live in two divided country. I think the homelessness, and it's crazy that the homelessness, it kind of, it's just so upsetting, isn't it? And then it's crazy that our young people can't afford to even rent a decent place. It's a flippant disgrace. And I firmly believe that it's about the equality of opportunity, and and I'm certainly a product of it, and I feel lucky for the schools that I went to. My mum was a school teacher after she'd done her IU degree, and she went from a cushy number in a pretty middle class place where we just thought, why are you leaving that school, to a really hard work school where most of the kids had free school dinners. And she said that if the kids didn't get their free school dinners, they wouldn't have eaten that day. And yeah, the idea that, I mean, certainly Rashford and all that, doing that, calling that out, what they were trying to do there, was, you know, fair play to them. I mean, it's just like, there is such a thing in society, and for whatever reason, some kids do need free school dinners if they need them. And we need, and art can be so powerful in terms of influencing, you know. So I was, like I say, grew up in Milton Keynes, and then it was so spaced out. There was like massive gaps between bits. So the only way to get about, because the bus system was shite, was to get a bike. And so we used to cycle to see your mate to the school where we were at, you know, to the whole city. So mates were spun all over the place. And so we got a bike, and then I got a bit into it. And then I was really captivated by the kind of otherworldliness of road racing. It was so foreign and different, and the colours and the jerseys and all that. And I really got into it and raced in that. And then I went off to India for a month with the school, and came back, all my fitness had gone. I did a race at Eastways and I got nowhere, got spat. And then to cheer me up, they thought it'd be a good idea to go to the Tate Gallery and to see this exhibition. I didn't know it was on, this bloke called Robert Rauschenberg, and he did this stuff. And it was, to me, it was like, I'm not going to make it as a cyclist, I'm going to really get on with my art. This really fired me up, and I got right into the idea of, with photo collage and all that stuff, really started getting into it and really appreciating Dada and pop art and all that, and it really fired me up as a 15, 16-year-old, you know, so that I really started to find what I was at. And brilliant art teacher, and I got into photography, and there's my dog Noggin, and we were in bands, we had to make our own fun, and one of the things was, I was in a band, and we started thinking we were dead cool, we were going to make it, and then we got into silly sort of ska and R&B band, and we used to play all the colleges and did the Edinburgh Festival. And that opened my eyes to comedy, because we'd do big gigs and then they'd have the whole day free, and then it's like, get up and say, oh, there's this comedy going on. So that's where I first met Henry Normal, and I was president of Student Union for a year while I sussed out I didn't really want to do photography anymore. The people down the corridor in animation seemed to be having loads more fun, and then I went with my friends who were all animation students to this. We drove down in my mum's convertible Beetle, it's the best trip, and we went to this, and in those days you could plug your way into everything for nothing, and I was a photography student, but I still managed to see loads of stuff, and it was the year when there was the Cat Came Back versus Streets of Crocodiles, right? And they were the two very firm camps, and I always thought that was much more fun. And anyway, so I went back to college, and I convinced, because I was doing Student Union, convinced Roger Noak, who was running the animation course, I should be doing animation, you need me on your course. So he said, yeah, come on, you go off and spend the summer showing me you can. So I decided to go for it, but I didn't throw the baby out of the bathwater. I used a lot of my photography knowledge to do photo rotoscope. I used to film stuff, then put it on paper, and I'll show you a bit later on, and then it was artwork then, and you could buy it with animation and whatnot under the rostrum. And then then it was quite a contemporary look, so I got lots of work straight away and paid off my overdraft, and I was like, oh, this is good. And being from Milton Keynes, it was like everyone was setting up businesses. There were people setting up windscreen businesses and graphic design businesses, and there was the youth opportunity youth business opportunity, young enterprise allowance and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also from the Sims got some money off of the Prince's Trust.
Yeah.
And but the guy that came with that money was really good, and he really got me sorted out with the business plan and the cash flow forecast and all that stuff that I knew nothing about, and it really nailed us down. And then I came up with this name, Triffic Films, which I thought would be fun, because in those days all the companies were called like Baxter Hobbins Sides and things like that. They were all the graphics company. They sound like a bunch of solicitors, and I was like, I want a more fun name, you know. So one that bank managers can really struggle with, you know. And then it seemed the logical thing to do to go on my own. But the sort of if it was towards the very last moment, I bottled it, and I got my friend Tobin to join me. So there's Tobin, and we worked really well together for a few years, and really did get loads of work in and all that. But then of course, you know, we were mates first, and then we sort of fell out, and which is a shame. And he went and got a proper job, and I carried on, and we kind of drifted apart, which was very horribly sad. But you know, that's life. And but I found myself doing like all the books and the invoicing and the planning and all that stuff, and he just swarmed in and did the old storyboard and stuff, and I was getting a bit, hang on a minute, this isn't fair. But I was the glue, right? So experimenting and mucking about when finding our way and getting paid to learn how to do stuff. That was what the best thing was. You used to pitch for work, you come up with the design, you go, oh, fancy doing a bit of stock frame, we'll do a bit of stock frame, mate. And then didn't know how to do it, but like a month later you did, and then we get a couple of mates who knew a bit about stock frame, and we did some fun stuff, and it had that liveliness. You could feel the joy that it was sort of made with. So that sort of like I say, I was into collage and that right from the start with doing the from the Rauschenberg stuff. So that sort of fed into If I Got News for You book. And then Two Fat Ladies. That was the sort of where the idea of combining flat animation with a 3D set. But that I was accused of nicking that idea off of Flat World, but I hadn't seen it. This came out before Flat World, by the way, but I didn't. It was just that whole stock flatness in a like a diorama thing was a memory from as a kid. There was like, you used to get these dioramas that were pop-up things. You used to hold them up to your eye. Do you remember those? And you were sort of like sets. And
They're like pinhole things.
Well, no, they were sort of like just a sort of like a flat cardboard, but remember the cardboard box, and you can hold it up and you can see a 3D set. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could animate that, you know? So that's where we did one called Kurgan's Run, and then that fed into Two Fat Ladies, where I got them coming out the book and then coming across the table, and that got used for years and years and years. And I remember going to Pat Llewellyn's house, the woman who put those two together, to celebrate its like 100th show or something. And they had the title sequence on, and then they showed it dubbed into every language going, and Japanese, the lot, you know. And it just really dawned on me that animation, you just get paid you one thing, and that's it. And then the musicians, you know, they get like come in. So with doing title sequences, I learnt a lot about economy and telling a story succinctly. And this is one of my favourite quotes: if I had more time, I've written you a shorter letter. And if it's good enough for T.S. Eliot, it's good enough for me. So that became, less is more became the Triffic philosophy. And also the obligation to entertain and trying to hold your audience captive. That's the gig. So, like I say, like with the Fred Quimbley guy going off to play, you know, you earn the audience. That's what we've always had that approach. Our things always had to stack up against the very expensive commercials and that to introduce the shows. The intros were a bigger deal than the effects, that's for sure. I did the thing called The Outlaw, which was my first narrative thing. So this was about the last smoker in Britain and the world now run by the health police. And it was 15 minutes. You know that slot that went after Channel 4 News before Brookside, and it was a great slot because you inherited a big audience, you know. So we did 15 minutes, and it sort of looked like that sort of combined with a 3D set, and but it was. I remember the pile of artwork that generated was huge. It was a couple of those tables worth, all under the stairs at my art studio, and I thought, that's a problem. We need to do something else about it. We need to do something. If I want to carry on telling stories and not just doing 30-second things, I need to come up with another way of doing things. And so we approached Andy and Simon at Cell Action, and we did this 2D TV, which was a topical sketch show. And I met a guy at Giles working on the Vigot News for You and Spitting Image. He worked on that as a producer. And Georgia Pritchett, who now writes Veep and loads of other brilliant stuff. And we did 2D TV, which was topical and popular. And typically we'd make, once we get to 24 minutes, we used to make half the show, 12 and a half minutes, in 4 days leading up to transmission. That's a lot of animation, and it's a lot of thinking, and everyone thinks, oh, you just press the button and make it funny. It was like still everything just so intense those weeks, you know. But so there's a little reminder of what was.
Tony, can I have a word? You know, not now, John. Kofi and Anne's on the phone. Not to me, of course. But John, it's important. Shh. He's only saying he doesn't trust me. Go away! Go!
I have to go. There's someone on the other land. Hello, Kofi speaking.
Oh, hello, Kofi. It's John Prescott here.
Yes?
Yeah, look, there's a Scotch egg in the fridge. Can I have it?
What? Why are you asking me?
No, it's the only way I can get Tony to listen to me. John, get off the phone.
Who's there? Who's spying on me?
Certainly not me, that's for sure. Oh!
Right, stealth peacekeeping. If I catch anyone else spying on me, I will kill them.
Do you notice his helmet UN was ran the wrong way, wasn't it? So it was mirrored. So that's the sort of little things that used to creep through when you're making animation that fast. But it was a fun show to make, and this bloke was a fan, George Michael, and he got us to do his video in 3.5 weeks, and shoot the dog. And he got pilloried for it, and I was accused of killing his career. And it was such a wild time. But then he went into kind of hiding a bit. But then a little while later he was completely vindicated with the whole 7/7 and things and the horrible attacks in the UK. Because the whole theory of shoot the dog, I've got a picture, but was that in certain neighbourhoods in the States, if you have a beef with your neighbour, you don't have it out with them, you shoot the dog and then they know, right? So his theory was that if we cuddle up too much to Bush, that we'd get it, and we did. And so he kind of was the first celebrity to put his, stick his neck on the line. And at a time when there was a bit of a weird atmosphere in the UK, I remember that, but it was all the Twin Towers had come down, it was like, yeah, let's go and get them, and it was like, there were the marches and stuff, but there was a horrible thing of people were ready for war and come up with the wrong conclusion. So, it was weird, but he was, for all him being of his pop style, he was brave, and anyway, so a little while after all the 7/7 thing where he was vindicated and he was on Hard Talk and all that, he did a tour and he did this massive inflatable of George Bush, and then at a key moment he goes to unzip the fly thing and out comes a bulldog and the little tails go like that for later. And you can see it, there's bits on YouTube, but I don't know if you noticed in the thing there with Kofi Annan, that was Dave Lamb doing that voice, and he was just, you know, in those days, which wasn't that long ago, we didn't think anything of, there's a guy there that's obviously, it's not right, but a Caucasian geezer should just put on a funny voice, you know. And I don't know if you remember all the business when Hank Azaria had to apologise for his long time portrayal of Apu in Simpsons, but I remember there being some resistance to that as well. But he said, and he would quite happily stop doing it, and he said, part of me feels like I need to go around to every single Indian person in this country and personally apologise, and sometimes I do when it comes up, and I think there is a responsibility on that one. I wouldn't dream of casting a dark-skinned character, even in animation, with just a white guy now. You wouldn't think of it. It's just not right. It's not cool, is it? Which is like, as we're going to talk about later, comedy influences society and vice versa. You know, that is positive progress, I think. So we did this show called I Am Not an Animal, written by Peter Bainham. And with that lot, including Simon Pegg, Kevin Eldon, Amelia Bullmore, Julia Davis, Steve Coogan, Arthur Matthews, who wrote Father Ted. And it was a load of fun. And it was these lab animals that live in the inner sanctum of a vivisection lab, who have been bred for an increasingly single society. So they're just meant to say, welcome home, you look lovely today, but they get, the guy who ran the experiment gets a bit carried away, and they start talking about films they've never seen and books they've never read, like a lot of people we know, and then one night they get brutally liberated against their will and stuck out on a farm, and they have to get on with it. And it's, I loved it. It was great fun to do, and it was one of those things where, being baby cow, they were being fated and kind of given the opportunity to do things. So I think we snuck through the back door like that in terms of getting it out there. But one of the things we were trying to do was 6.5 hours on not a lot of money really. So and one day I could feel it all just ebbing away, and because we were looking at all sorts of CG methodologies and mocap, and it was only its early days and all that, and we were just like, this ain't gonna work. This is going away now, what are we going to do? And I remember going back, and there's Scott Miller at our studio, who was just brilliant at doing concept art, and I said, we should do this, humanise all that, let's just do this, and do some concept stuff, let's knock it up quick. And we had about a week before we had a meeting, we went in with all this artwork, and they just went, yeah, let's do that, great. And we did it in cell action, and had to push it, didn't we, at the time? It was tough. And but 6.5 hours in not enough time, and so I'm going to show you a clip. And so the animals are out in an old lady's house who's been carted off to the funny farm because she's seen all these talking animals. And so now they've got the house to themselves and the farm to themselves, and they need to eat and need to survive. So what they're going to do?
Until you have a positive contribution to make, I think the feeling of the group is that we'd rather not hear from you.
Fine. That's fine. I'll keep my idea to myself then.
What idea?
Oh, nothing. It's silly really, you know. Here we are, farmland, farm equipment, farmhouse. What's all that about? I know, let's build rocket ships.
Yes. No, wait! Of course! We could start a farm!
Yes! Produce organic vegetables, bounty of the hedge, jam and chutneys.
Selling potatoes by the side of an A road.
Coming out to the field with pie and apple in a spotted kerchief.
A rusty ambulance full of chickens.
Some bees.
A costume!
Hanging around in a shed.
Having rough sex from behind with a farm worker.
Who goes around?
And a simple supper of a hunk of bread and a good smelly cheese that you just couldn't bear to sell.
Flip-flops!
Bringing in the sheaves, 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 bringing.
Come away with me.
Song!
In the sheaves.
Have you all finished? Okay, I reckon we can pack 500 veals into the barn when we're at full capacity. It's pushing the rules, but this is war and we need troops. Cows here, pigs here, shoved in with the chicken. Unconventional, but this isn't the Ritz. It's intensive farming. You'll note the turkeys here have a nice forest to look at. I haven't gone soft. It's a Christmas tree farm. We sell both together in a festive pack. I'll put them into on-site slaughter. There's enough red tape to strangle the lambs, which are here, with the bullets, but behind closed doors you can bend the rules. You know, kill them with bolts, but package it as halal. Fatten the chickens, send a fox in. Creative solutions. The entire operation from piglet to plate. A powerhouse of livestock, if you will. Farmer Mark's Sunshine Valley Happy Lambs Free Range Cottage Farm and Slaughterhouse. Cheers.
Can't we just stick pictures of Justin Timberlake on the back of rucksacks?
So, you got a mixed reception, mainly because you got some criticism from the animal rights, some of the animal rights people who got us wrong, because it is, they thought we were making light of the suffering animals, and we're not, because it's about the treatment of human treatment of animals, and yeah, we didn't get another series, and Pete went off to America. The next thing he did was Borat. He did the Borat film with Sacha Baron Cohen. And he's gone on to wonderful stuff. He knows his onions. So every joke is a tiny revolution. Going to do a couple of jokes and we'll talk about the construction, shall we? So a man's at his wife's funeral. And the vicar comes up and he says, yeah, what's the Wi-Fi code? He said, for God's sake, man, you burying your wife. He says, is that all lowercase? A man's having a examination at GP's. I'm very sorry, Mr. Pickles. I'm going to have to tell you to stop masturbating.
What are you talking about? How dare you?
You just have to say why. Anyway.
Why?
Because I'm trying to examine you. So what's going on there? So we set one thing up, don't we, and then we subvert it. You know, we set up the expectation of one thing, and then we go the other way. And that's just should be so simple, shouldn't it? It should be so like. If that's the case, then we should be able, everyone could write jokes all the time. But we can't, can we? And it's just such a wonderfully difficult thing to do, comedy. And that's the fascination. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm still absolutely fascinated with it. So. Some top tips. So, light bulb. You've got your idea. Now you need a plan, don't you? You need your plan. And 3, the magic number 3. It really is the magic number. So the 3-act structure. You might hate the restraint, and you might think, oh, that's terribly restrictive. But I really think it's a great place to start and set up confrontation, resolution, It's a simple thing, but if they stick to those basic things, you can change the order around. But it's certainly with the 11-minute things that I've been fascinated with. That structure is something that you kind of use a lot, and exposition is often a good place to start when you try to get that thing to work in 11 minutes. You often end up cutting a load of it out because it's so much better to show rather than tell, isn't it? And then I'm not much of a writer, but I've worked with loads of good ones, and from what I've seen, it's write, beat into shape, get a script editor, iteration, unplug, and work at it. And then the triangle, what's that all about? So budget is on one trajectory, one angle I mean, one thing. Time available is on the other one, and then resources is at the bottom. And then basically you've got those three things, and you try to wrestle with them and keep it looking like a triangle, and you need to be realistic and pragmatic and you schedule. I think people always go on about the producer not being a creative one, but I just think that wrestling with a schedule, getting the shape of the thing to work is massively creative, and you have to be creative to work out how to cut your pie and make it work. So I've embraced producing and have much fun doing that as I do directing, I think, because in terms of just building the plan it can be such a cool thing to enable the thing to work. So schedules can be a beautiful thing. And inspiration versus motivation. John Cooper Clarke, who's brilliant, when he got a shed, I saw a thing in one of those Metro magazines, and I loved it. And he says inspiration is for amateurs, and he has a routine. Yeah? He doesn't just rely on inspiration. He goes and sits in his shed, and he applies himself, and he comes up with the goods. It's a team sport animation, and there's a team. That bloke there, that's Mark Burton, who worked with us on 2D TV, but he's gone on and he's done Shaun the Sheep in Madagascar and Farmageddon and that. And that's Joe Brum, who does Bluey. And yeah, so it's great when you get a team working together, and then they obviously, some of them go on to some bloody great things. So, man down, I like variety as well, and I love puppets. And this is the last title sequence I ever did, but so look at that got used a lot, and but it's just that vibey combination of photos and Pelham puppets, and the concept came from Greg about the cutting of the strings. One thing sort of come up with the concept, delivering it turned out to be quite a mission and quite a big job to pull that comp that together in a way that doesn't become the thing. It is invisible, the comp, and it looks a lot less sophisticated than it is, than it looks. You know, it looks hopefully very analog, but it was a lot of mucking about with that. And then I left Baby Cow on a sabbatical to work on the first digital series of Mr. Bean, but that's the team for that. That's a nice big team, and then there's, yeah, like I say, doing little bits of claymation. There's Mikey Please, who did the Eagleman's Dag, and recently Robin, and this lad, his name's gone out of my head, but I remember him doing that stop frame stuff, and he'd always previously done 2D cell action stuff, and he Andy Dawson, and when we did finish this job, he said, I feel like a real animator. And Lemmy, Mark Newt, he did this film, which was lovely little short he got me to produce. Marvin was born with a hole in his head. He wasn't born stupid. He wasn't born dead. I got Steve Coogan to narrate it, and there was music by Jeff Searle of Mercury Rev, and it was a slightly twisted animated film. It was the story of a young boy born with an extra hole in his noggin, and in his brain used to pop out, and then the fun started. And then I worked with teams in other places. So that was a team I worked with in Toronto on a show about a guy who's crazy about his football team. Comedy's all about communication. It's a challenge working with a team of folks who are a long way away. It must be even harder if you don't share the same language. But I think with Canadians, you're lulled into a false sense of security because you think, they're just like us. They've got the same sensibility as us. And then you go home and you start sending them stuff, and they start sending you stuff, and it's obviously we're very different sensibilities. But we're all different, and we all have complementary skills as a team. And you're probably a visual person, and what I suggest is that you try and have a sympathy for others. So we got some great reviews on that show. No one saw it. It might have been a horrible kind of disappointment, but had I not been at that point starting work on Mr. Bean. Worked with this geezer. So again, it's bound to great wordplay and irony and sarcasm and logical incompatibility and establishment, set up, expectation, confirm or deny. So my dad started keeping bees, not for the honey, for the fur. So there he is. We did a little job with him. So strong characters, you can believe in and root for. That's what I think a lot of it's all about. This is my favourite thing. Brilliant in every way. Detectorists. And like I say, that came along and taste evolved. So at the time, I remember the zeitgeist, certainly amongst some friends, was Bernard Manning, and then he comes along, and then it's just they come along and change things, And political correctness is a word that can be used as an attack, along with woke, and the right wing have got that one for themselves, and using woke as a pejorative insult really winds me out. So my top tip is if you ever find yourself saying either, or thinking it, think again. Because I think comedy helps to change society. So I've known some proper talents with freakish abilities. So Steve got that ability to see a script and read it straight away and make all the other cast who've made all their notes with highlighter pens and all that look really daft as he comes in. You got a script? I've lost mine. Oh yeah. And he comes in and he hasn't read it obviously, and it's funny. He can make it funny straight away, So he has got great ability, but that's because he has worked so hard at it over the years. So he's a hard worker, and they rehearse like mad, and are into the rewriting and thinking that the last idea is the best idea. And I think sometimes you can go too far with that. It used to wind me up when I thought we'd got something ready to go, and then they just wanted to rewrite it a couple of times. But with animation, you can't really do that. So but he does have that, like I say, that very handy reading ability. So I was working. This was the guy that kind of got me in there. Was Henry Normal, who I'd met at Edinburgh Festival when I was doing music. The people like Caroline Aherne he was working with doing the Mrs. Merton show, and like the Royal Family, and their shtick is you make fun of the strong and the powerful, but not the weak and the powerless. So the butt of the joke should be the most powerful person in the room. Make fun of the strong, not the powerless or the marginalised. What's funny about that? make fun of those buggers. So I think that attitudes become the aspiration of those watching, and we all gently change. So, glue. Mr. Bean is an existing character established with a hugely successful live action series. So we were, by the way, 5211s, you say it quickly, doesn't sound much, but it's way more than a typical film. It's over 8 hours and it's a monster making 52 strong stories. It's like a marathon with loads of regular sprints. And I've now been involved with 4 of them, directing 2, executive 2. So we started off with the first series was with inheriting the first series, which was Tiger Aspect's first go at making a series, and they brought in 2 of London's most respected studio, which was Richard Purdham's and Vargas Studios in Budapest, and it ended in tears in court. Put simply, Tiger, Rowan wanted editorial input, but by the time they got the animation back from Budapest, all inked in and cell painted and on video to edit, it was far too down the line. So it was a messy, expensive hassle for everyone involved. But the show, once it went through the mill of backwards and forwards in it, and very costly operation, they got the show was a success all around the world. And so 10 years later, they were like, oh, we never want to go there again. But they decided that the way to do it was to get us to do it in still action. So we did that. So we had that huge team working on it, and we got the look to look pretty fluid for still action, using a really flipping complicated rig. But like I say, 10 years after the initial huge success, we did the fully digital one. So the stipulation was that our first show of our series was 53. So that needed to follow on with the full and weighty animation as the hand-drawn first series. The thing about the first series was that a lot of it featured a lot of going off piste. They had some real quality animators, like Russian animators and that had just been hired into the studio in Budapest, and they really got carried away, and they were like, oh, they'll like this, and they just sort of add in their own little animation drum solos, I call it. Just doing their own thing, thinking that they could make it funnier, but they messed up the beats and the comedy, by just making things go crazy where they didn't need to. And so we developed a pipeline that worked for all, with strategic steps where Rowan could stick his oar in at a time that wouldn't be a nightmare for us all, to undo things. So we could have an input where it meant something. And I kind of learnt that really because I'd had insight into the mess with the Vargas studio. So because that thing you saw called I'm Not an Animal, it won the Grand Prix at a festival in the Czech Republic at Anifest. So the next year they invited us over to be on their jury, and another guy on the jury was Gnasher Unleashed from Vargas Studio. So we were with them for a whole week, and in that time he told me the full story of what a nightmare Mr. Bean was from his perspective. And he asked me to be his advocate in court, and I was like, whoa, no, I can't do that. And but yes, like I say, their one was an absolute mess. So armed with that knowledge, we set things up in a way that worked, and it worked. It did work, It worked because we anticipated the problems, and I think doing what I've done for a while equips you with thinking, oh, actually, you got to bring in the man, you got to listen to what Rowan's got to say, but at a time where it really can have the maximum input and sensible time to say it, at a time where he can say stuff without us causing untold undos. So So we worked that out, and he was duly chuffed with the way things went, and they've done a couple more series since then, not with me involved, but using the same pipe. But now they're going to take it to Italy, aren't they? Which is a real shame for British animation when you think about all those people you saw there that were employed, not going to be anymore. So Rowan Atkinson was obviously a bit of a comedy hero, and when I first met him, I was very conscious that I'd not got my contract through at that point, and I thought we were just going to go for a chat. Well, it wasn't just a chat, it was like, let's suss you out. And it wasn't until that meeting was done that I realised what I was stepping into, really. It was a serious game. So yeah, it's funny, celebrity, isn't it? I mean, I remember going to Toronto. When I was in Toronto, I'd gone for a couple of meetings while I was there, and I was in the reception of an area, a studio place, TV studio, and there was some shenanigans going outside, the equivalent like the Big Breakfast or something like that, some outside broadcasting, loads of crowds and that. I went into the reception, and I'm just sat there. And then the woman gave me the nod to go upstairs to have my meeting. And just so I stood up, just as this woman came across me, and she thought I was standing up to say hello to her, and she gave me a big kiss on the cheek and shook my hand. I went, all right. And I didn't know who she was. And obviously she thought she was doing me the best favour in the world. She was granting me not just a handshake, a kiss on the cheek. So I was like, who are you? And it's just... And I remember going back and talking to Henry about this, and he laughed his head off because I was slightly freaked out, and because obviously he's had a few dealings with the whole celebrity process, and he said celebrities only has the value you put on it, and I thought that's interesting. It only has the importance you give it. So it's nonsense, really, isn't it? Really, think about it. So. I certainly, when I'm working with people like him, I try to not be consciously nonchalant, but keep in mind that I've got a skill, and they're the star, obviously, treat them with a bit of respect. But the interest is in the thing, is in the project, and in making it right and good, and then like with Adrian Edmondson, he was a massive. He was hugely kind of into the project, and he worked hard at it. He wanted to get it right. And sometimes he came with an idea, and then I knew the context of something or whatever, and I obviously knew the relationships, and he'd let him have a run at it, and then I'd say, well, why don't you just do it like this? And he'd do it, and if it was funnier, and often was, he'd really laugh generously, and it was like, cool, I made Adrian Edmondson laugh. That's pretty good. But it is about that, you've got the context, what's going on with the whole bigger piece, and they wanna get it right, which is that's best when they do care, when they are bothered. Life as a comedy in the wider tragedy and close-up, says Charlie Chaplin by Rowan Atkinson. And that's a good quote, and it's good and everything. And he was into this thing called the proscenium arch approach. In theatres, back in the day, they did the performances in the round. The actors used to come out at you, and then theatre came along. It was a sort of business thing where they could get more seats in. They stuck the stage at the end of the room with that proscenium arch that goes over you, and then you the actors can draw the close-up. A good performer draws your eye and draws your thing. You focus on them, don't you? And so it's about seeing the whole relationship, the full silhouette. And he was one for that. And you play it on the wide. You might play the comedy on the wide. You think about Laurel and Hardy. It's always on the wide, and then you go in for the tragedy and the close-up. And there's a lot to be said for that. Apart from we have to deliver shows. So you can't do that all the time, but you do need to pick your battles and try to do it when you can. So I went to the BBC and did this Danger Mouse, and I picked up the end of the first series because Sarah Muller who was the producer of it, the exec of it, she left to go on Channel 5, Kids Milkshake. And so she left it, which was a beloved thing. She wanted us to leave it. She trusted me with it, which was nice. And I did finish off the first series and then did the second series. So over 52 episodes. And yeah, it was a lot of fun and a responsibility, because that means a lot to people, you know, and it's great character comedy for young kids. I'm proud of every episode we do. And later on, with the sound down, you will see an episode. And then I went to Beano, and then when I went to Beano, it was a troubled show. It wasn't. I had Cheryl Taylor come and find me on my last day at BBT. She said, "I'm glad you're going to Beano, because that show's not really working for us. We really need to get it sorted out." And then Alice Webb, who was like the big boss, who you never saw, she came to find me on my last day, and I was like trying to get to see her many times before that. Never get to see her. She said, "Glad you're going to Beano, because that show needs sorting out." And so I thought I was going with a bit of an agenda, and because they were obsessed with the idea that it needed to be, the characters needed underpinning, and the show, BBC's mantra at the time was that the shows need to reflect the kids' lives a bit more. So we played more of the school scenario with a relatable teacher character. She was the one character we could bring in. But it was other than that, it was inheriting the character designs that had been designed with quite a departure from the DC Thompson look. But I'm proud of the character relationships we sorted out. I mean, they got this black girl and a girl in a wheelchair, and I couldn't quite. I thought we still needed to answer the question of why would Dennis hang out with these mates, and so we kind of thought we probed that a bit, and so Pieface became much more the representative of a bit of diversity from a neurological perspective, neurodiversity, and we gave the two girls a bit more about them. You know? So I'm proud of it. We underpinned those things. Even girls in wheelchairs you can mind their faults. Probably too strong a word, but you know, you can find their isms. And Catherine Drysdale, who voices JJ, at the end of the series, I remember I was really chuffed, and she said, "I really like JJ now." So that was pretty cool. And so my obsession was to make it more rooted, more reflective of the audience's lives. So I went there and with big sized knives, and I upset quite a few people. Karina, the producer, I think she nearly walked on my first day. But I needed to calm her down, and then we worked well together. It was good, and we brought in Miss Mystery, Maya Sondi, to go up against the long-standing Mrs. Creature, and it's been a big co-viewing hit here and around the world. And I understand there's now a demand to make another series, so you know that was something. So and then I went to Scotland, Wild Child, to work with that lot on a series that we made in Unreal, using Unreal for the lighting and rendering, and we saved loads of CO2 apparently, 600 tonnes of CO2 than the other way they had to do it. And it looks pretty nice, because using the Unreal you've got the effects are pretty nice, you know. So, and we went for a sort of, we tried to make it look like models really. We were going to try to pay homage to the Cosgrove Hall top frame time, you know, with the beautiful McKinnon Saunders puppets, you know. So there was that. We're pulling on our full look of it, you know. So, but also pushing the female representation. So this is the test that we did at the beginning. Was it the proof of production? And when I saw this, I thought, because when we started, there's that little frisson of energy of thinking we might not be able to pull this off. Like when we did 2D TV, it was just like we might not be able to do this, and I like that. that little bit of kind of, so so there was a definite bit about that with this. So until we got this test, this was the thing that made me think, all right.
Hello there, Mo. What's the hurry?
Message from Toad. He says he wants to meet us here. Most urgent, he said.
You too, huh? Typical Toad. No sign of...
What the?
Cut! Super! Got some lovely shots there. Your faces!
What's the big idea? Startling us like that.
You see this? It's a proper movie camera. I'm going to make a movie. And you're all going to be in it.
Whether we want to be or not, apparently.
Yes, I want to. What's your movie called?
Cool. So, we're CGI. I mean, obviously my favourite CGI films, obviously, with the Toy Story one, but also like The Incredibles, and I think this film, the Spider-Verse was a real game changer, and I think that the look of this was just a real exciting thing, So that's my lot in Berlin a while back. So there we go. Toad and Friends, made in Scotland, but it's a comedy made for kids. Ultimately, great characters, telling stories that kids can relate to. The stories that celebrate the rough and tumble of friendship. So there's some grit. But good examples. We hope that they gently, we're getting kids to gently understand and negotiate this harsh world. So Kenneth Grahame wasn't big on female representation, so we've got a couple of strong girl characters, and it's great working with Adrian Edmondson, as I say. Simon Paisley Day, he's Dominic Cummings in This England thing. Did you see the Michael Winterbottom one with Kenneth Branagh? He played that horrible Dominic Cummings. But he's also a Star Wars baddie, General Quinn in The Rise of Skywalker. So he's really, it's great working with strong actors. They bring something to it. This lad was struggling though. He was like, "What's the matter with you?" He plays the voice of Ratty, and he didn't quite on it. It's just like, let me work your marge, get it out of him. He didn't seem to have read the stuff. And I was like, "Is there something you need to tell me?" He said, "Well, I've been a bit busy." I was like, "Why is that?" "Well, I'm moving to London next week." "Oh, why is that?" "I'm going to be playing the lead in Hamilton." "Oh, right." And then went to see Hamilton with my family, and I felt like we were the only ones in the audience who didn't know every bloody word of every song. And it's like a religious experience going to one of those shows, but it's amazing, it's all wrapped. And he said it took him over a year to get off the book, to be able to do it, just like without looking at the book. So there's a lot going on. And Riz Ahmed, he was in that Ms. Marvel, and in that Netflix Obsession that they had a runner taking a piss out of on Gogglebox. He was the son when his girlfriend went off with the dad. Do you remember that? It was so cringy. Anyway, so yeah, comedy for kids. Shana Kerslake, she was in some heavy dramas, and it was just so funny that she enjoyed playing such a cute little hedgehog. She was in Billy and Smother and Bad Sisters. And Ryan Sampson, he was in Brassic and Plebs and Horrible Histories and Doctor Who, and also he was Pieface in Dennis Gnasher Unleashed. And Amalia Vitali, she was Lulu. Do you remember the alien in Farmageddon? She was Lulu, and what Mark Burton wrote. So comedy for kids and Glue. So I was in Annecy, and the people from who did this show with Wild Child before, this girl came up to me who'd done this show with them, can't remember the name of it, and she said, "Oh, I've heard about you." "Oh, right. What?" She said, "They all tell me you're the glue." And I was like, I really like that. So if if I'm anything, that's what I am. I'm the glue. And I told you don't give the money. So thanks a lot.
Oh, that was great. Thank you so much. That was really fascinating, and I learned a lot from that, particularly your attitude towards comedy and what works and what doesn't. We were talking about doing a Q&A. Would you like to have a break first, or do you want to press on?
Yeah, we'll go and get a drink and that, and then come back.
Great. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes, something like that. Not 20. Oh right. Oh, okay.